Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for the TGI Sports Talk Sunday stream of consciousness. We know where this show usually goes. Rainy Sunday morning here in upstate New York, but supposed to clear up later and be a little nice, a little cool, but a little nice. I want to welcome everybody watching this morning on TGI Sports Talk's Facebook page, our YouTube page, our X page. Also known as Twitter. Some of you have trouble with change like I do. And also on Roku, on the national streaming sports network. You may still find the app there, or the channel app called Northeast Streaming Sports, because I don't think the brand has changed there yet. But check that out. A lot of great content. Also a lot of great content on Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube channel. Check us out there as well. We do get a lot of people coming in from all of those. The Twitter attendance here and the Twitter views later have been really rocking and rolling. DDH, thumbs up to you, buddy. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph is specifically the Sports Corner from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook, YouTube, and he's got a new TV outlet that he's using in Pittsburgh. So not that it's not a big deal. It's a very big deal to get on TV. Great job. And congratulations to Ralph on that. Want to thank my guest from Friday, Randy Lurch, former pitcher for the Phillies and the Brewers and the Expos and the Giants. And it was a great conversation. We went nearly an hour and a half. Maybe it was an hour and a half. If you haven't caught that interview, catch it. He's got a great story of, it's got everything. It's a kid with great promise, who had some highlights in the major leagues, but also a tale of, again, I don't want to use the word tragedy because, again, tragedies, kids with brain cancer, right? But substance abuse derailed that journey in a lot of ways, and then redemption as well at the end of it. And we had a great conversation with Randy. He was very, very forthcoming, and that's what I like in those interviews. They've got a story to tell, and we want to tell it. And I'll get to your guys' comments in just a second. And also Hal Lurch, he wrote that book. Wrote a book. I'll grab it. I'll promote it one more time. We'll see. I'll be posting it. Go to Amazon. You can get this book fairly cheaply. Inexpensively. Sorry. Got in the bullpen. The Randy Lurch story: a big leaguer's battle with drug and alcohol addiction and cirrhosis. Randy was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease like 6 years ago, and he's doing very well. This book was co-written with Hal Lurch, by the way, who reached out to me about that interview and how much he enjoyed it and appreciated it. So we thank them. Check that out on Amazon. Quick note. I'll give you guys some primers here in a second. Well, we can talk about whatever you want today. It's your show. I stopped putting specifics. I'm going to stop putting specifics in the promo for this show. We're going to talk about the world of sports in general, controversies, specific situations within teams, if you want. We branch off a lot of times into, this is a stream of consciousness, right? Into pop culture, into movies, a little bit into politics. I didn't put all of that in the description, and I won't, because I don't want this to become a political show or anything like that. But, we stray that way sometimes, and we might a little bit today as we talk about one of the topics I'm going to prime you with. Good night last night. My wife's birthday was a month ago, but I had bought her tickets to a show at Proctor's Theater, which is off Broadway. Troupe. It's a great little old venue. But we went to see Back to the Future, the musical, last night. We had dinner at Daly's on Yates, which another free plug for a restaurant here. You guys got to start coughing up here. They have several places around the area, but it was a great meal. Very cool place. If you're in the area, try it out. It's not cheap, I will tell you, but it's not awful. And then we saw Back to the Future, the musical, which I have to tell you, if it comes, I don't know if you'll get the same cast that we got. If it comes to your area, go see it. It is so much fun. It's a rollicking 2.5 hours or whatever, including an intermission, 15-minute intermission. We had a blast. It was a fun timeout last night. So anyway, that's a little bit about my life, which nobody cares about. Some stuff to talk about today. The Yankees have been giving warning signs. Yankees faced top-notch pitching against the Dodgers and don't score any runs. God, 20 men left on base the last 2 games, many of them in scoring position. 1 for 21 for Stanton, Rizzo, and Gleyber. Ugh. Good news is Garrett Cole's getting another rehab start today. Unfortunately, he does not hit. We can talk about that. Harper and the Mets played in London. Harper hits a home run and does a soccer-style slide to kind of pay homage to their soccer teams over there. He also wants to play in a 2028 Olympic team. Should we be sending major leaguers? How are we going to do this? Interrupt the Major League Baseball season? I don't know. The NFL, Randy Gregory, a player for the Broncos, is suing for some fines, I think up to $500,000 in fines he got from the NFL for using THC, which is obviously a major, and some of our listeners here may be able to elaborate more. He's using basically marijuana to ease post-traumatic stress syndrome and anxiety. And, with the drug becoming legal in many states, I think it's 31 states. I could be wrong. But I believe it's legal medicinally everywhere, I believe. Should they be able to use it in a prescribed format or even more widespread? I don't know, especially if they're using it to help cope with different things. And are there dangers? Mac brought this up earlier. Are there dangers to them if they, you should be able to use it before a game. You can't drink alcohol before a game, but, will it be dangerous health-wise, safety-wise to a player who might be using it? Damian Harris rips the Pat's coaching staff. Rasheen Rice says he's going to work on his maturity with the Kansas City Chiefs. He should, because this kid is lucky he's alive. The NBA, Chet Walker, rest in peace, Chet Walker, Hall of Famer, great player with the Bulls teams, some great Bulls teams. He played in Philadelphia and then went to the Bulls. Played on some great Bulls teams that could not get over the hump in the 70s, early 70s. They couldn't get past the Lakers, but he played with some great players. Bob Love, Jerry Sloan, Norm Van Leer, and there were great teams coached by Dick Motta. Couldn't get over the hump. Could have some topic to talk about there. Celtics up 1-0 as they dominate the Mavs in Game 1 in Boston. Porzingis was a huge part of this game, as I had kind of said. I thought he'd be an X factor. We'll see if that continues and whether the Mavs can bounce back. I still expect the Mavs to bounce back. I have a 7-game series and a possible loss for Boston again at home. We can talk about Caitlin Clark. The Caitlin Clark issue continues. Is this just, rookie initiation, or is she being targeted? Gino Auriemma, great UConn coach, says it's both. NCAA football, again, we won't get into a lot of stuff there because we got Wednesday's show, but one thing that really caught my eye is Army-Navy no longer has a standalone Saturday. Bowl games will be played the same day Army-Navy is being played this year and probably going forward. In the NHL, Florida wins Game 1. Bobrovsky is just tremendous in a shutout. The Belmont was raced here in Saratoga yesterday with a crowd of 50,000. Won by who won this race? I got it right in front. I had it right in front of me. Jason Worth, by the way, former Major League Baseball star, is a part owner of this horse. It was done something. Where are you? The favorite, I know, Dornoch, wins the Belmont, pays 17, went off 17-1, so he probably pays about $36 to win. Great turnout, great weekend in Saratoga. One more day of racing. They raced Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I believe today. Crowds there Thursday and Friday were okay. but nothing to write home about. Anyway, there's a couple of things to chat about. College World Series we can get into a little bit if we need to, or we'll hold that for Wednesday night. Paul Spada, yo, up in Wisconsin. Good to have you with us. Danny Fuller with his good Dodger morning. His Dodgers are kicking my ass, and now I owe him I don't know if we bet a coffee or a beverage on this. Someday we'll be getting together. Oh, Danny Fuller's only up for you. I appreciate Danny. 5:41 Pacific time. I'm wondering if you're down, and be honest with me, Danny. I think you would be, because you've been here other mornings when we didn't have this small time wager going. Would you be here at 5:30 in the morning if you were down 0-2 in this series? JB is with us. Good morning. Good to have you with us. Sorry, I did go a little negative on my Yankees again. You know, I know you, and it's funny. Danny chastised me for being a little bit down on my Yankees a few weeks ago as they were really starting to get rolling. And Danny, I think facetiously, Friday during the MLB update was writing off his Orioles. We're only 2.5 games back, by the way, of theoretically the team with, well, not theoretically. I'm not going to call them the best team in baseball, but they had the best record of baseball, or had it. Probably don't anymore. Let me take a quick look here. Do they? 682. Phillies have gone ahead of them now by 2 games. No, sorry, they got the same number of wins, 2 less losses. You can make up wins, you can't make up losses. One thing to keep in mind as these races heat up. By the way, the races are leaving a little to be desired in some of the divisions. The Braves are already 9 games behind the Phillies. We know about their injury issues. The Reds 6.5. They've won 7 in a row, but 6.5 behind the Brewers. Padres 8 behind the Padres. Not a lot of division races. Now the 20 wild cards that we give out, change that whole perception. So. I'm not a big fan of just hit a home runs. It kind of goes to, watch a video of Mickey Mantle hitting a home run, putting his head down and run around the bases. Could you please? Somebody? Does anybody have any? And I know we've got all kinds of excuses for these guys, right? It's entertaining. It's not just a sport. It's entertainment. It's cultural. I don't buy any of this stuff. Kevin Mensch said a few weeks ago, we talked about it. He played with guys who did this. He played with guys of different cultures, and he said it's BS. Shouldn't be done. I always go back to the Barry Sanders comment, right? When it's relatable here, I think. Touchdown celebrations, home run celebrations. Barry Sanders always just handed the ball to the referee. And when he was asked why, he said, because I like to pretend I've been here before and expect to be back. But these aren't new. They're probably not going away, Paul, because, once things are here, they never seem to go away. Navy man, well, are you are you going to tell, again, I don't want to misspeak. So if you're a Navy man, I want to thank you for your service. If you're just a Navy fan, I like both. I root for the service academies all the time. When we're doing the college football huddle, I always mention the Army Navy games upcoming and then give the scores on Sundays. So I know you can take it, buddy. Right now, you don't have to, though. I tell you, this has been a great example. Where do you guys keep getting pictures, by the way? I get confused. I mean, where do these pitchers keep coming from? Pitched yesterday. Oh, my God. Stone. I can't remember his first name. That's why I'm looking it up. I knew his name was Stone, but I wanted to give his first name. You're not going to give it to me there either, are you? Gavin Stone. That's what I thought. Gavin Stone, right-hander, 25 years old. He is now 7-2, 2.93, 1.24 whip. Where did the Dodgers keep getting these pitchers from? My God. Oh, man. Well, Danny, thank you. And I enjoyed a heck out of your participation. Yours, the newer guys, I should say, you and Chris and Paul and some others, and certainly my longtime people, Drew and Rick and Kenny and Billy Pulver, um, Anthony, amongst some others. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. I don't mean to, but I enjoy your participation because this makes it fun for me, especially this show. This show's a free for all for everybody to enjoy and talk about what they want to talk about. You know, sometimes you won't like my opinions and sometimes I won't like yours, but that's why we have fun. Even when I get worked up, I'm having fun, I promise you. Good morning, Chris. By the way, coming up this week, I didn't mention when I mentioned Randy Lurch. Coming up this week on Keith Engle, one-on-one with Keith Engle, we'll have Paul Rosen, a para athlete, if you will, what do they call it? Sled hockey. Played in the Paralympics, along with some other competitions for that group of people. Won a oldest player ever to win a Paralympics gold medal, I believe, at least in hockey. And we'll be talking. I'll be digging into his data, and we'll be talking with him. And he also has written a book too, as well. So check that out. I didn't mention his book. I should do that right now. Let me get back to my notes here. Give me 1 second while I do this. Won't take me but a minute. He wrote a book called, great title actually, for anybody, including himself, Never Give Up. The Meaning of My Life, the Paul Rosen story. So we'll get into that, take a look for that book as well. And I'm going to try to get it downloaded on Kindle and give it a read this week before he comes on. Anyway, what are we talking about here? I almost ignored your comment entirely, Chris. When Phil Housley was drafted, he went straight from high school to the NHL. I don't think they allow that anymore. I feel like they do. I feel like some of these kids come in at 18 years old. We won't have Jim. I didn't get a chance to invite Jim today. If he comes around, we'll send him an invite. Let me just see if he's messaged me at all. Just got so busy. Well, if he does, we'll do that. Let me check this out for you. NHL players go straight to pros after high school. I love Google because I don't have to put everything in. Blah, 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 blah. Where do hockey players go? Hockey, unlike other sports such as baseball and football, there are some, but very few players that go directly from high school to hockey. So there's nothing to prohibit that from happening. However, most players stay in college juniors until they are 20 and then attend college. So you do have, I feel like Matthews, I could be wrong. I thought Matthews might have come straight from high school. Again, I have no idea whether that's true or not. Paul says, play like you've been there. I agree, you know. And here's the thing. If you remember, Paul, if you watched the Kevin Minch interview, he talked about it. He says, if I'm hitting behind a guy who hot dogs it like that, I'm pissed off at him and tell him to stop because I'm going to get one in my ear hole because of you. You know, again, this is something that players should police themselves. I don't want rules put in that you can't flip a bat or whatever. We can police this ourselves. Next time, you know, I always said this when can't think of the guy from Toronto who, you know, he had one of the most famous bat flips. Chris will probably know the name, or Drew if he's here. Drew's here. I see him. I don't know why his name's escaping me here. Been retired a couple of years. You can fix this very easily. But pitchers don't want to throw inside. They don't want to hit guys on purpose unless, somebody's telling them to. You shouldn't have to tell them. Next time the guy comes up, you buzz him. Maybe you buzz his teammate too. So your teammate says, hey, dude, pretend you've been here before and expect to be back. Well, we thank your dad for his service, for sure, Paul. And I root for both. I don't have a favorite amongst those two teams. You would, because your dad was a Navy vet, obviously. But I root for Air Force, Navy, and Army. I love Army. I think Army's got one of the best underrated coaches in the game in Moncton, and he's had offers to go elsewhere and is not gone. So, Gavin, thank you. Where do you guys get these guys, though? My gosh. Chris and Danny are awesome. They are, aren't they? And you are too, Paul. As I've said, when you're not coming in here under assumed names trying to catfish me. Women Olympics basketball team doesn't include Reese or Clark. That's kind of interesting. And I'm not sure. I read the headline. I didn't dive into the story too much. And these two players are, again, in the news a lot because Caitlin Clark is getting the snot beat out of her. Some of it is just, normal rookie initiation. Some of it. I mean, look at Michael Jordan got banged around. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson got banged around. But this feels like more. And I mean, people want to make it a racial thing, but I don't know that it is. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors at play here. I think there's a jealousy factor, regardless. And some of them might be racial, I suppose. Some of it could be, and again, I don't care about people's orientations. I don't care, but a lot of the league, is lesbian and she's straight, and that's probably plays part of this. But the fact of the matter is, and Angel Reese still is fueling the flames when she talks about the fact that I'm part of this resurgence in the WNBA. It's not just Caitlin Clark, and I'm sure she does play a part in it. But the fact of the matter is, when Reese's team comes into a Coliseum and it's half full, and then Caitlin Clark's team comes in with a bad basketball team, by the way, and it's packed. It's economics, guys. Forget about the rest. She's been harsh about women's sports in the past. And listen, the WNBA is struggling financially. TV contract, lack of attendance, all the stuff that goes along with that because it's a trickle-down effect. If you're a player in the WNBA, you should be happy that she's there with that attention. Quit your crybabying. And by the way, where are your teammates? I understand. I can even understand in a way some of these other players and their jealousies and taking it out on her. Her teammates, who, by the way, as I've watched highlights of these games, are terrible. And she does lead the league in turnovers, which is partly because she's playing with such bad players, I believe. And partly because of her own trying to do too much. But again, like what happens when you play with two players and you got great expectations on you. But Angel Reese, fine player. Shut up. And for neither one of them getting picked, Drew, I don't know what's behind that. I don't know if they're looking for more veteran players. I mean, the Olympics are only a few months away. So I was going to say sometimes players get added later on, but this isn't like we're picking a team to play in, pre-Olympic tournaments. They've got like 2 months to get ready or less. So I don't know. I don't know what happens. Did they suspend the season? I guess. I don't know what they do in the WNBA, and I'll probably have to find these things out. But I did read the story, and again, I'm really not sure how if you're trying to promote the sport, and again, the Olympics is a great place to do that. I mean, you want to go and win. I get that. But I don't think you're going to make the team worse putting these two on and leaving somebody off. Maybe they were worried about the blowback if they put them on there as rookies. I don't know. But if you want to promote your sport, these two players should be on there. And the Olympics is a great place to promote your sport globally. So I don't know what they're thinking about. Just not a Sunday without a birthday. There's a birthday every day. Dave Parker, the Cobra, 73 years old today. Great player. Borderline Hall of Famer, probably. Suffering with Parkinson's, and he's not doing very well. I've seen some videos of Dave recently. I think he was at a game in Pittsburgh here this year. And he seems to be struggling badly with his health. Parkinson's, and I think he has some other issues as well. I'd attempted to get Dave on the interview show a couple of times here in the last 4 years, and it's never really worked out. It's probably not going to at this point, but we wish Dave Parker well, and we wish him a very, very happy birthday today. I don't want to say underrated player who is playing, but I think as you look back at great players, he's a name that gets lost sometimes. He was a very good player for a long time. Did get caught up in the whole drug trials that went on in Pittsburgh and involved players like Keith Hernandez and Dale Berra and a lot of names, not just Dave Parker. But again, he's one of the guys I think that became the face of that, him and Keith Hernandez specifically. And I think that followed him around for a bit. He had to leave Pittsburgh, I think, to kind of rejuvenate his career, and he did that with the Reds. Had some good years later on with the A's when they were really good in the late 90s, early 2000s. Or I'm sorry, right around the Tony La Russa, the Bash Brother teams. That was around 90, right? Yeah. Time. JB, let's not forget, it's a very good point. I probably would have missed it, unlike Memorial Day, which is kind of right around when we're doing the show. D-Day had passed, but 80th anniversary. And when we have a major, milestone for this event, a lot of these guys won't be there. I think only, I don't want to get a bad number. I feel like only 50 some, maybe it was 200. There was 50. I can't remember the number. It's a very low number of World War II veterans that were able to attend. I mean, the number's dwindling, obviously. Jesus, I want to say by the day, but absolutely, we want to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, a very important day in our country's history, as it led to the liberation of Europe, pretty much. And again, these are guys that gave, as we said on Memorial Day, made the ultimate sacrifice so we can sit here and argue about sports or politics or movies or whatever it is. We have that right. We have the right to disagree too, which is part of the problem and it's throughout society, right? And I think it starts on a political spectrum and it kind of trickles down that we can't disagree with anybody, or you can't be my friend if I don't disagree with you. Believe me, I disagree with a lot of my friends' views. I don't think less of them. I can think they're wrong, and I can think that the things that they like in sports, I don't like. They don't have to like the things that I hate, they don't have to hate the things that I hate, and I'm very vocal about them. In other forums, I'm very vocal about my views on other things going on in the country. I don't dive into it a lot here. When it's appropriate, you'll probably hear me say something a little passive aggressive, and you can probably figure out where I lean. Although John DeLon doesn't seem to be able to figure it out. Nolan Ryan would be again. If you were going to flip a bat at Nolan Ryan, think about being a bat flipper or whatever, standing at home plate, taking whatever. What's it take Randy Arozarena, who doesn't hit that many home runs these days because he stinks? It's a home run. It must take him 20, 30 seconds, I don't know, to get around the bases. He does this. You wouldn't do that against Ryan. You wouldn't do that against Drysdale. You wouldn't do that against Gibson. And a ton of other guys, because you'd get one in your ear hole and say, thank you very much. And there'll be people who say there's no place for that in baseball. Well, there's no place in baseball or sports for the showboating that goes on either. In my mind. Again, there's an opinion. You don't have to agree with it. I'm putting one right in the guy's ear hole if he does that to me. Right? What do you got, Drew? Oh, come on. We stop. Oh, God. I haven't updated my roster today. Doesn't even matter. I am being blitzed by the league leader. As this, it's just terrible. I don't have any. I can't find decent guys to pick up. I got so many guys hurt. This whole Matt McClain thing has really hurt my team, I think, more than I realized. And probably ought to just drop them. But yes, my hitters have taken a whole week off. Drew is presently beating Rick in a battle between 2 and 3. And today being the last day. Good luck to both of you guys. I'll just sit here in last place and lick my wounds. Doing a little better in one of the other. Actually, in one of the leagues, the paid leagues, small amount of money. One was 25, one was 50, I think. The $25 one, I'm probably in the same boat I am in your league, Drew. It's awful. But the other one, I'm still holding my own, middle of the pack. Still with a position to make a run here. But again, I got a lot of the same players on these teams, and the injury bug is just ruin them all. So there's an argument for when you're playing multiple fantasy teams, don't take a lot of the same players. I like to do that because when they do well, I like them to carry me along the way in lots of places. Kenny, how are you, buddy? Kenny, one of the topics I brought up earlier, which you may or not have been here for when I was priming us, right? I'll kind of give some of those. Yankees failures against the Dodgers. Well, let me start with this because I'll go back to that because we got a bunch of new people here. And we can talk about anything you want, you guys. If you're new and you're reviewing us, chime in. You can chime in from everywhere except Roku, and I should see the comments. Kenny, one of the things we're talking about was Randy Gregory. Lastly, with Denver, I think, NFL players suing the NFL for $500,000 in fines he received for having THC in his system. If I said that right. Basically, he was using marijuana to manage anxiety and post-traumatic stress syndrome. And with it legalized in so many states today, now you got to be careful, I guess. Should the NFL just allow them to do this? Because I don't know the drug testing. Drug testing must still cover that, and they're punishing guys who are using something that may be legal in the state that they're doing business. So should they be able to use it even recreationally, or should it be medically prescribed? And they got to be careful too, by the way. All these leagues are traveling to other countries to play ball. Mexico, Germany, England, and I think they may even be going to South America soon. Not this year, I don't think, but in future years to play football and maybe baseball. They've gone to Japan. If you don't know the rules, you're going to possibly end up like Brittany Griner, and whatever you think of Brittany Griner, it doesn't matter. She didn't know the laws, and she was, put away. And please tailor your opinions based on the facts, not who she is and what she might do that you don't like. Tailor to the question I'm talking about, which is, I don't think the laws were the laws, and she should either be not treated that way or treated that way because she didn't know the laws and broke them. Maybe the WNBA should have let her know a little better what laws were in places she may be traveling, but I think that was with some kind of barnstorming team, if you will, and maybe they weren't involved. But, should we look the other way for some of these things in NFL and other sports? If players are using to treat anxieties and PTSD and things like that. I don't know what his PTSD was for, but again, people have it for many different things in their lives. And does it create any danger again, you can't be using it. I wouldn't think you could be using it game day because you can't drink alcohol the day of the game, or shouldn't be. Does it create a safety issue for that player? It's not affecting any other players. So anyway, that's one of the questions we'd kind of thrown out there before. Rick says now his pitchers have deserted him. By the way, Garrett Cole with a second rehab start today. We may see him here in a couple of weeks. Luis Gil goes today, probably the best pitcher in the American League against Tyler Glasnow, another really top-notch pitcher. And the Yankees, again, are showing an inability to beat high-caliber starting pitching. 20 men left on base yesterday. Stan, Rizzo, and Glaber, 1 for 21. Those guys are all hitting around 220 and on base percentage below 300 or just above. You can't win like this unless you're hitting home runs. Judge played well in these 2 games. And does this really show that the fact that the Yankees have to go out and keep Soto in this lineup and re-sign him? Because now you're getting a view of the future. Brittany Griner made the Olympic team. Okay. I don't know whether, Brittany Griner is one of the better players in the WNBA, I believe. No. Should she not be taken because of her history or the way we feel about, the things that she believes in or that go against what we do? Let me just check something here, though. I'm just, I'm asking. I'm not necessarily making an argument. But if you look at, where's Griner? Let's just look at, this isn't sortable. That's not even freaking funny, man. Can I search? Let's look for her. Hope you spelled her name. I don't think you did spell her name right, Rick. I'm not going to find her probably that way. Oh, she is there. You did spell it right. Great job. These Perth guys are the best. All right, Brittany Griner's only averaging, 11 points a game, 4 rebounds. Those numbers aren't great. Oh, God. But historically, she's one of the better players in the league. What's Caitlin Clark? I don't even know what her stats are. I know she leads the league in turnovers. That's all I know. Yeah, I must have spelled her name wrong. Or maybe they're not even putting her stats up here to really mess with her. She's only averaging 16.8 points a game. It's not like she's lighting it up. 32% on 3-point shots. 89 on free throws. Her overall field goal percentage is 37%. That's pretty bad, guys. By the way, just an FYI, that's pretty bad. 5 rebounds, 6 assists. It's a horrible team she's playing on. Parker had a gun. Paul. One of the lasting memories of me as a younger man, 19 years old, I believe, 1979 All-Star game, I think, up in Seattle. I remember him throwing out Brian Downing at home plate in one of the great throws I've ever seen from the right field corner. Him and Clemente had the strongest, most accurate arms that I can remember. Dave Parker and Roberto Clemente, 2 great Pittsburgh right fielders. So absolutely dead on about Dave Parker. There are a lot of ways. There are a lot of way above average players forgotten. Yeah. Talking about Dave Parker. Hell, again, we gave out a rest in peace to Chet Walker, and our condolences go out to his family and friends today. 80 plus year old Hall of Fame NBA player, played with Philadelphia, and I mentioned at the top, played with some great Bulls teams that couldn't get over the top. Chet Walker, I think we know Parker's numbers pretty well. I thought I put Chet. There he is. Chet Walker, for his career, where is it? He averaged 19 points for his career. He was He was a 7-time All-Star. He played on some really great Chicago teams that couldn't get past the Lakers. They played in the East or the West at that time in the early 70s. Played with some great players in Bob Love and Jerry Sloan, Norm Van Leer. Had some very good years. Trying to look at his best years here. He was a 20-point, 7-rebound a game guy. Maybe a little ahead of his time. Dewey Evans belongs. I think Dewey Evans belongs regardless whether Baines is in or not. And I come up with a bunch of guys that belong. If Harold Baines belongs in the Hall of Fame, I can make lots of comparisons, but Dewey Evans belongs on his own right, I think, because of the defensive, and we don't take that into account enough. We did, obviously, with guys like Bill Mazeroski. Bill Mazeroski doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame based off his offensive numbers, that's for sure. He's in there because of his glove. So's Rizzuto. You have to count all parts of the game, to me, when evaluating these guys' contributions. Kirby Puckett was a great player, but his prime was about the same as Don Mattingly's. Their numbers are about the same. How's Don Mattingly not considered for the Hall of Fame? The county numbers don't add up enough, and I think his prime was long enough. If Kirby Puckett's was, I got to believe Don Mattingly's is. Basement Bob Carlos, the Mad New Yorker, joins us this morning. Bob. Basement Bob doesn't agree with me about anything other than the fact that I stole his freaking playoff idea. No, I'm sorry. We don't agree on that, actually. Oh, Basement Bob. You guys don't know the story. Some of you are newer. I'll tell you the story. Several years ago when I was still doing my vlogs, which I want to get back into. I mean, we get into them and I do a lot of my venting here, right? But I used to take a topic each week that was really kind of eating at me. And I would do a vlog without an audience and then share it later. It was 9, 10, 12 minutes. And I'd rant on something. And so at one time I was ranting on the playoff system in college football. And I wanted the one, and you probably heard me espouse it, 16 teams. Take all 10. There's only 10 conferences in FBS 1. Take all the winners. Make it a champions tournament. You still got 6 at-large bids for the teams in the SEC and the Big Ten and wherever else that deserve it, and Notre Dame. And let them play. Right? So I went on a 12-minute rant about this and put it on all my different platforms, and I get a message and then an email from this basement. We call him Basement Bob. I don't remember the guy's name, but he told me that he'd written a book 20 years ago about this, and which I think he sold one copy to his mom, and it's probably sitting in her basement with him at that point in time. And he threatened lawsuits, and he kept emailing me and threatening lawsuits if I didn't take the video down, and I didn't. I didn't credit his book. I made it clear to him that, look at this, I didn't think up this idea. This type of thing has been floated for years. I'm not the first guy to speak about it. I just espoused its virtues, right? And anyway, I haven't heard from Basement Bob in a couple of years now. Maybe I'll do another one of those and post it. Gibson would bean anybody. But Gibson would bean you if you looked out. Listen, the game was so much different then. Right? And again, the pitchers started to dominate a lot in the mid to late 60s. And that's why we had major pitching changes after 1968 when Gibson had like a 1.12 ERA. Instead of getting, again, just like today, instead of getting hitters up to speed to be able to control these guys, we lowered the mound and we changed the strike zone and blah, blah, blah. And as I've said, every major rule change. I shouldn't say every, never say every. 99% of the rule changes that have been made since then. Look at the size of the ballparks, the designated hitter, how the bats are made, how the balls are made, spider tack, making stolen bases easier, pitch clocks. Everything is geared towards helping hitters, and they still can't help themselves because they don't know how to play the game, quite frankly. Gibson was one of the guys who led the way there. But Bob Gibson, back in the day, it was well known, right? Here's home plate. Here's home plate. Can't see what I'm doing here. You're never going to see what I'm doing here. This is my part, right? I'm sorry. This is your part. This is my part. And if you're leaning out over the plate, trying to get that outside corner that they thought Drysdale and Gibson and dozens like them, if they thought you were encroaching on their territory, they're going to knock you down. And players expected to get knocked down. Today, players don't expect it because pitchers don't do it. So we end up with, these grab and hold fights. Stupid. Gibson and many would definitely beat you, Paul. Used to be if you threw the bat anyway, you got tossed. You know what? It's a great point. I remember, Kenny, I'm going to go back and I don't necessarily like to do this because I know some people that I know that nobody on that follows me here, but and I have very little contact with this person since high school, a little bit, Facebook friends and whatnot, and they're in a little bit of trouble now. And they lived back in the day of their high school achievements. I don't live there, but I remember things very well. And you talk about guys throwing a bat. I remember being at a sectional game, Kenny, up in Fort Ann, I think. And we ended up winning the game. But Tim Ostrowski hit just a bullet. And if you remember, I know Kenny and Rick and my perk guys are a little bit older than myself and Tim. Tim was a tremendous hitter. This guy just hit line drive after line drive. And he had a ball, I swear to God, no more than freaking 4 feet off the ground, just blistered it. Bases loaded. And it gets caught by the center fielder for an hour. And he, in frustration, just tossed his bat back towards the bench with a little bit of extra oomph. Umpire throws him out. One of the keys to our team, we're trying to win a sectional championship. It might have been, we're going for 6 in a row, I think, at that point, because I think we were seniors. Throws him out of the game. We find a way to win. My brother actually goes in and plays third base as a sophomore. Hardly played at all that year. And I think he made a play at third base, but that was about all he contributed. But we ended up winning that game, but we could have lost it because the umpire threw him out for just like tossing the thing aside because he was frustrated with himself. It wasn't a bad call. So anyway, neither here nor there. It's just memory that you spoke for me. Kenny's in Philly this weekend. Still thinking about getting a winter place or whatever. I don't know what kind of place in Philadelphia. And I think you said you'd still keep your place up here. Hope so. I'm not going to play golf. I'm not coming to Philadelphia to play golf. Well, maybe once, but well, I'm glad you like Philly. There's some nice areas in Philly. I know Rick and some others have kind of run Philly down, but look at all those cities have good and bad spots. Even smaller cities. I was in Schenectady last night, and Schenectady for many years, a few decades ago, and some of the areas are still like this, the whole city was run down. It was dangerous. There was crime. Even in the State Street district where Proctor's Theater is, the theater had run down. But they've done a great job of revitalizing that entire area of State Street and back to Union Street. And there's great restaurants. There's great shops. You got Proctor's there that's going almost 9 months a year with first run shows and great stuff. We had a great time last night at the Back to the Future musical. But any of these cities, especially big cities like Philadelphia and New York, there's some great spots in New York. There's some places you can't go, but you go down to Little Italy and it's safe. You can walk the streets and there's great restaurants. You can sit outside. You got even in China, little Chinatown up there, you've got, which is bordering. It's kind of encroached a lot on Little Italy. Actually, there's some great areas there. Boston, right? Go to the Quincy Market. Beautiful area. Are there dangerous places? Yeah, you don't want to go to combat zone or what used to be known as a combat zone. You find a place to live and be safe anywhere, but hell, Amsterdam is probably as dangerous on a. I'm probably exaggerating now, but Amsterdam's not much safer in a lot of ways. Albany's not much safer in a lot of ways, but there's great areas in all of those cities. Of course, one of the great areas in Amsterdam, they're done a great job of trying to destroy in the golf course. Oops, sorry about that. I lost Carlos. Many, of course, they are, Carlos, because we stop. Nestor has one bad game. This is what ticks me off, man. You remember things you say when they're convenient to remember. But when you say things that are totally off the wall, you never said them. You're like Mike Francesa a lot, Carlos. He shouldn't be in the bullpen. He could be a starter. He had one bad game, and the starters are not the reason this team starters, I'm sorry, are a big part of the reason this team has got the second best record in baseball. What are you watching? And the potential problems are not going to be Nestor. They're going to be the offense that can't score runs without hitting home runs. Nestor's been fine. Before yesterday, let me look at his numbers. Oh, my God. It gets comical sometimes, Where is Nestor's? Let me find Nestor's pitching stats. He's 3-5. Well, that's not great. Only 74 hits in 80 innings. 3.68 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP, that's gone up because of yesterday. He imploded a little bit. 78 strikeouts in 80 innings. Had some issues last year. He hasn't had any injury issues this year. And you can't just say, well, we need him in the bullpen because the bullpen needs help. Bullpen's been okay. Canley got rocked yesterday. Yesterday they weren't good. Nobody was good. I mean, who are you going to start? Poteet you're going to find another Poteet to start? He pitched great Friday night, but just going to keep you can't just keep plugging guys into that rotation. Oh, I'm telling you. I don't get it. I just don't get it. He's a big reason his team has got one of the best records in baseball. I'm not sure what that one's for, but anyway, Carlos, welcome back. Davis Schneider, second base is a nice pickup. I got to tell you right now, I don't know a lot about Davis Schneider. You and Chris make me look these guys up so I know what the hell I'm talking about. Davis Schneider, American baseball player. Drew may wave in here. He's playing with Toronto this year. Toronto will probably be looking to sell. They're looking to sell their. Listen, there's talk about Bichette. There's talk about Vlad Jr. There's nobody's safe, I don't think, come trade deadline in this underachieving Blue Jays team. But he's played 2 years. Not a ton of at-bats. Good numbers in small sample sizes. Last year he had 8 homers, 20 RBIs, and 116 at-bats. 404 on base percentage. This year, not quite as good. Well, he got 7 home runs, but he's only hitting 231 this year. Again, these are numbers that bother me. These low on base percentages. His is 332. And if you're talking about the Yankees picking him up for Glaber, that I'd probably take a flyer on, because Glaber is not my guy. Glaber is faulty defensively. He's faulty in baseball smarts. He stood at home plate one day. I don't know if it's this week or last week. I can't remember. He hit a pop-up. Didn't know it was fair or foul, so he just stood there. And the ball drops. So, Eldrick Woods name dragged through the media slurry as he appears to be under the influence on a Saturday night. Tiger again. I didn't hear this story. What's the Tiger situation? And you know what? Tiger Woods has been his own worst enemy for a long while, and you can't do that in this country. And I know you're not in this country. Chris is our Toronto correspondent. We build you up. Tiger Woods is the perfect example, by the way. We build guys up to be on a pedestal, and then we can't wait to knock them down. And Tiger Woods is a perfect example of that, and he made it easy to do. Let's find out what he did here. He did make the cut, by the way, at the Valhalla course. What tournament are they playing this weekend? Hero World Challenge. PGA Championship this weekend now. Oh, that's May 16th. What the hell is that? I don't know why they're showing that. Let me get to some news here. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything, so you can fill us in. I don't have any news on that. But if you have something to share, Chris, please do. Brazil. What are we talking about? I understand Brazil is a country in South America. Maybe we're talking about where teams might travel to. I don't know. To play. Kenny says, trust me, if a player is high on pot, he's probably not going to play his best. He might even laugh as the guy runs by him for a fumble. I don't think we're talking about using it while they're playing. But again, they can't use it at all. Should the NFL be relaxing their stance on marijuana as it's legal in, I believe, the majority of states? I want to say 31. And I think for medicinal purposes, I think it's legal in all. And if you're using it, not game day, but to manage anxiety, and maybe you'd have to use it. Kenny, again, I only have secondhand. I only have secondhand experience here. And maybe you can't use it that way. Maybe, it's not a maintenance drug where, if I use it Saturday to manage my anxiety, my PTSD, and it's not going to have any effect on Sunday, except maybe a negative one, as you're mentioning here, which I totally agree, which based on what you're saying here, it would become a safety issue for that player as well. Hello, Anthony. Good to have you with us today. Anthony Price, one of our more loyal followers as well. I'm sorry if you're playing overseas every year, you knew the law. Good point. I'm not excusing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Brittany Griner or anybody who gets caught doing things in a country that are illegal there, you should find out what the local customs and laws are. But I don't even know why I brought it up earlier, but I'm certainly not. But again, the treatment that she got there, I mean, if she gotten arrested in a state in the U.S. that didn't allow marijuana use, or she got caught coming back into this country, she wasn't going to go to a gulag somewhere. That, I guess, again, when you go to a country like that, you've got to know that if you get caught, I think about the movie Midnight Express, right? And it was a little more serious than having a few grams of cocaine or marijuana. I think they were smuggling heroin, and again, they were in for a harrowing experience. In that it was in Turkey, I believe, Midnight Express, right? For those of us old enough to remember. But I'm not excusing the fact that they get caught. Or say they shouldn't serve whatever punishments are allowable in those countries. And maybe I'm not going to Russia anyway. That's just me. Clark only good for shooting 3-pointers and turnovers. So you're taking Kennedy. I think her name is Kennedy, right? The woman that hip checked her, and then sorry, got an ant here. It's going to drive me nuts. So you're taking Kennedy's and she won't get any better, right, Anthony? She won't get better. And I'm not saying she should be on this Olympic team. Don't get me wrong. Oh, maybe I am. Because, again, despite her lack of maybe versatility right now, and maybe she can't do much, by the way. Yes, she is leading the league in turnovers. I agree. And it's very ironic that I'm sitting here defending Caitlin Clark when months ago I was kind of on the other side of this whole argument. So again, there's two different things here, Anthony. I'm not sure which one you're alluding to. Does she belong on the Olympic team? Maybe she doesn't. I'm not really commenting one way or the other. Other than if you want global exposure for your league, then Angel Reese and I didn't look up Angel Reese. What were her numbers, by the way? If you want global exposure at its maximum, then you send these guys because they're the most visible players in your league. She's averaging 11, so she's right around Brittany Griner's numbers. Better rebounding numbers than her. And again, the thing is, if you say she doesn't belong on the Olympic team, okay, I'll buy your argument. If you tell me she's not good for the WNBA when the numbers speak differently, and again, I fought some of this on the NCAA level, but when these teams are playing the half-full arenas, they were traveling commercial before she got there. Now they're traveling charter. The TV contract will get better because when you're playing the half-full arenas and Caitlin Clark comes in and the arena's full, you can't dispute that she's good for the league. And there's got to be and any jealousy that these players have towards her is really misplaced because what's good for her is good for them. Rising tides raise all boats. More money, more exposure, more opportunities outside of the game. I'm a little surprised the WNBA didn't manipulate this kind of the way the Knicks are accused of doing with Patrick Ewing back in the day to get her to a bigger market and a better team. But yes, she has her faults for sure. She's also a rookie playing amongst veterans. And the treatment that she's getting, some of it the men got too. Jordan, Bird, Johnson got the same kind of treatment. But their teammates came to their defense. I want somebody, and Anthony, again, if you're anti-Caitlin Clark, and I'm not sure, you're just pointing out some facts here. I get that. Tell me why her teammates don't come to her defense ever. Matt Barnes had a video go viral talking about just that fact. Why don't they come to her defense? She's that despicable a person who, by the way, is going to put more money in your pocket if she were to meet the expectations set for her. 30 plus. Oh, there you go. But again, and they did win. The Fever is starting to win. They went a while without winning. And we're talking about the WNBA, right? I mean, again, there is such a thing as, any publicity is good publicity. So even this treatment of Caitlin Clark has helped the WNBA in some regard, because even if Caitlin Clark was just going there and doing what she's doing, again, she's averaging 16 points a game, 30 points. That's a good output last night. I don't know what she shot. Let's find out. How do I get to the women here? WNBA. Let's find out how she did last night. And again, I'm not really defending Caitlin Clark. I'm defending the league and the way they're promoting her, which is the way it ought to be. Are they the dream? No, they aren't. Angel Reese had 13 rebounds and 13 points last night, by the way. Must have been Friday night then, Rick. They didn't play last night. Fever, they won. She had 8 rebounds, 30 points, 3 assists. I want to see what she shot. It's always important to me. What did it take to get that done? 8 for 15, 7 of 13 from 3-point land. That's not terrible. 1 basket. To Anthony's point, 1 basket that wasn't a 3-pointer. And again, in her defense, it's got to be hard to get to the bad. The little bit I've seen of this team as a whole, there's not a lot of talent around her here. They seem to have forgotten what the Olympics are and were about. They're not about him. Kenny, that's long. They haven't forgotten. They just like college sports. And long before college sports, it hasn't been about amateur athletes in 2 decades or more. Used to be just high school and I don't know what Colt players are, but beating the other countries. They weren't high school players, by the way. I mean, we were sending college players to play hockey. Michael Ruzioni was 26 years old when they won the gold against, not against the Russians, by the way, to beat the Russians in the semifinals. People seem to forget that. We were sending college basketball players to play, and almost all of these athletes were college athletes. Jesse Owens was not a high schooler in 1936 when he won all those golds in front of Hitler. One of the great moments in Olympic history. He was a true amateur, though. And even then, I'm sure that Jesse Owens was getting some support to be able to train to be the elite athlete that he was. But the amateur part of the Olympics has been gone for a long time. Go back to 72. Mark Spitz got all kinds of money and competed as an amateur. Not for swimming. Michael Phelps, more recently. Bruce Jenner, when he was still a guy. I mean, probably shouldn't say it that way, but whatever. When he was still a guy, was getting money, endorsement money, and however they funneled it to him. But now there's no illusion of amateurism at all, right? We send pros. I talked at the top about Bryce Harper wanting to play on the 2028 Olympic team when baseball's back in the Olympics. We send pros to the NBA, and the NHL's considering sending pros back again. I think the last Olympics they did not send pros, but it wasn't necessarily high schoolers. And if you go back far enough, they weren't even college guys. I mean, go back into the 1900s and look at some of those people that were running. I'm not saying they're pro athletes or getting paid, but not high schoolers. And again, them at amateurs and forever, true amateurs. I mean, what's a true amateur anyway? Can't earn any money. I mean, any money Bruce Jenner would have gotten back in the day to live. You've got to have money to live. He'd be getting, because of his athletic achievements, not maybe being paid for them specifically, but he gets on the Wheaties because of who he is and what he does. So doesn't that change your amateur status or not? Again, it's a debate. I'm not saying it does or doesn't. I'm just saying, I think, we lost. And again, the word amateur is gone from our lexicon altogether now. Andres Galarraga. Oh, I don't know. Let me find his numbers in the Baseball Reference. I'm going to say no. But again, if we're comparing him to Harold Baines, then maybe yes. 309, and by the way, Fred McGriff is another guy. 399 homers, 1,400 RBIs. Not terrible. 288 batting average. Good numbers. He's in the Hall of Very Good. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But I get your point, Paul. If we're still using Harold Baines and Fred McGriff as my benchmarks, well, then Andres Galarraga deserves a shot. And there's also the fact that he didn't win any MVPs near today, but he was probably in the top 10 more than Baines, I'm going to say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times he was in the top 10 for MVPs. Won a couple Gold Gloves. Great player, by the way. I'm not taking anything away from Andres Galarraga. But if I remove the fact that if I were to say Baines and two things. If I was going to say Baines and McGriff, let's say, and even Gil Hodges, and sorry, Dodger lovers. Great, very good player. But Hall of Fame should be for the best of the best. So if I'm going to say those are the benchmarks, then yes, Andres Galarraga and about 200 other guys belong to be in the Hall of Fame. If I'm going to remove them as the benchmark and say they aren't in the Hall of Fame and pretend they're not in the Hall of Fame, Andres Galarraga doesn't belong. Okay. Think about men like Roy White, Joe Morgan, and so many others that were way above the norm. Listen, I love Roy White. Roy White was a very consistent player. He wasn't nearly as good as Joe Morgan, by the way. And I think Roy White would tell you that. I've interviewed Roy White and on my one-on-one show about 3 years ago. And there's no more classy guy and humble guy than Roy White. Roy White was a very steady and a very good ball player, fundamentally sound. He had a little bit of pop. He could run the bases. He stole some bases. He was a good defensive outfielder. He had a bad arm because of an injury he had early in his career, and he couldn't throw well. And the Yankees kept trying to replace him year after year, but Roy White was a really good player. Roy White's a guy I know a lot about, and I really think Roy White and Bobby Mercer belong out in Monument Park. But he's not as good as Joe Morgan. But I get your point. I think I get your point. I'm not sure what that's in the context of. Joe Morgan is a Hall of Fame player, and deservedly so. Roy White, unfortunately, is not a Hall of Fame player. Roy White is in the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame that Rennie LaRue runs up here with great job Rennie does up here with the Baseball Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame, New York State. And the rules are a little lax to get in it as far as eligibility. You had to have played in New York, been born in New York, or maybe drove through New York. I'm not sure, but there's some great players that are there. But Roy White, unfortunately, doesn't belong in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Joe Morgan does. And I love Roy White. I got to tell you, I grew up as a Yankee fan in a time where the team wasn't great. And Roy White, Bobby Mercer, Thurman, Nettles later on were the guys that I hung my hat on. Before they got good again, 76. when I was a kid, 14 years old, 1974, they were in a pennant race for the first time in my life, and I thought it was awesome. And it was a shame they didn't win. It's a great story. It was a 3-team race most of the September. Baltimore, Boston, and the Yankees kind of trading spots, and Yankees could have won the division, winning 2 out of 3 in the last weekend, and Bobby Mercer breaks his thumb trying to break up a fight in the hotel lobby between I think Rick Dempsey and Bill Sudeikis, if I remember, 2 guys who had zero influence on the race. But I appreciate you bringing Roy into the conversation, because I love any chance I get to talk about Roy White, one of the classiest individuals in sports that I've ever encountered. I mentioned that I mentioned that when Paul first brought up the hating the baseball celebrations was Barry Sanders. He did give the ball to the ref, and I mentioned also, Drew, the rest of that story is when he was asked about why he does that and doesn't spike it or have some elaborate celebration. He said, "I like to pretend I've been here before and expect to be back. And if I'm a home run hitter, I would expect the same thing." 2004, Brian McGrattan notched 551 penalty minutes in 71 games. That's a good question. I gotta believe one of the Broad Street Bullies might have. NHL record for penalty minutes. Individual. Let's find out, Chris. We'll find out together. 1974. Well, lifetime, Tiger Williams has 3,900. They're listing Dave Schultz with the most penalty minutes with 472, which is below the number you would mention here. So I'm going to say no. Let me see if I can find anything else here. Single game record. There was a famous game between Boston and Minnesota back in 1981 where they had 419 minutes combined in one game. Dave Schultz. See, they list. Yeah, I don't know about this Brian McGrattan. Where did he play? He played in W8 in 2004. Would have been WHA. But I'm finding Dave Schultz with 472 and 74-75. Paul Baxter second with 409. Dave Schultz again at fourth at 405. Yeah, I'm not sure why they don't list that one. Let me just look him up real quick again. Let me look him up. What's his name? Brian McGrattan. How about your guy, Chris? Can't remember his name now. Chris, his name's escaping me right now. How about your guy? How many did he have? Chris. There, I'm down the rabbit hole now of I probably won't list it there. Canadian hockey player, 4th round pick. Doesn't hockey reference. I love the sports reference book. I'm telling you, it's the best. Is this list penalty minutes? Well, I don't even have them in the NHL before 2005. So maybe that was in the minor leagues. Oh, maybe you're saying a professional season. So maybe in the minor leagues, right? So I'm finding only NHL information, and that would be Dave Schultz. Drysdale, Drew, was very notorious around the same time as Gibson. They're contemporaries. It's funny, I got for whatever reason, I got into one night last week. I got into one of my YouTube rabbit holes at night, and I got watching different interviews with Don Drysdale, and he was an interesting cat, man. But when he pitched, he would again put one right in your ear hole. Although they didn't have ear holes for the most part then. And listen, it was acceptable. It's the way the game was played. Players policed themselves. You didn't have to worry about celebrations because somebody was going to make sure you didn't do it again. And again, I will challenge you to show me players back in the 60s, even the 70s. Maybe the 70s started with Reggie and whatnot, standing at home plate. He's really probably the first guy. I've seen a lot of Mickey Mantle home runs. Every one of them, he had his head down, running around the bases. And I know things change, but one of the reasons that guys didn't do this, because if you did it, either your teammate was going to pay for it, or you were, or both. And just like a lot of things, slide hard into second base, running catchers over, players can police this themselves on the field. We don't need the rules that you put into place. We talked about both of those things with Kevin Mench a couple of weeks ago. Former Texas Ranger, Toronto Blue Jay, very good player in his time, about how the game has changed. And he thinks these rules, as do I, are ridiculous. When things that used to be policed on the field are now baseball is putting in rules to protect players from themselves, essentially. I'm not advocating guys to get hit in the head and killed. I use the ear hole more as a metaphor, if you, I don't know if metaphor is the right word, but whatever, than I do in reality. But I'm going to knock a guy down, or I'm going to hit him and make him understand you shouldn't be doing that. Show me up again. I'm going to do this again. That's all. What's wrong with that? JB, well, there's a name we haven't heard in a while. Heard some talk radio guys discuss Mark Gastineau not in the Hall. Should he be? No, I don't think so. Listen, Mark Gastineau, a lot of Mark Gastineau's success is because he was playing next to one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time in Joe Klecko. So, I mean, his numbers, how do you spell his name? Mark Gastineau. Yeah, again, the NFL is so subjective in the way they do their Hall of Fame. There's a lot of guys in there with worse stats, I'm sure, than Gastineau. I certainly wouldn't call him a leader on that team. I don't think he did little things. I don't think he was great against the run. He was a great pass rusher. 43rd. So he's the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1982. First team All-Pro. Wow, 40 years running. Second team the year before he started that run. 5-time Pro Bowler. 2-time sack leader. He's in the Jets Ring of Honor. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hard on Gastineau. I guess if I was a voter, and again, the NFL is very subjective. I mean, in fact, you can't not put players in, right? You have to put between this many and this many in every year. If guys aren't deserving, don't put them in. But as far as this goes, his candidacy specifically and his success, and I'm not a Jet fan, so I'm trying to look at this objectively. I feel, I could be totally off base, and I don't know that we got any Jet fans here to correct me, that a lot of Mark Gastineau's success was because he played next to Joe Klecko, who was one of the best defensive linemen and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and he is. Murdoch from Pittsburgh also liked making you feel nervous. Murdoch. Who's that? Doc Ellis. Doc Ellis. I'm not sure who Murdoch is. Danny Murtaugh managed the team, so maybe you're referring to him, Kenny. I'm not sure about Murdoch. And maybe it's a spelling, but I can't think of anything even close. But speaking of the Pirates, a guy who didn't have any qualms about throwing at you was Doc Ellis. He very famously hit 5 or 6 guys in a row to start a game in Cincinnati one year. On purpose. Oh, God. Oh, there you go. Doc Ellis. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that, Kenny. I didn't look ahead to my comments. Yes, Doc Ellis was a character, man. Claims, anyway, that he pitched a game on no-hitter on LSD. He walked 9 guys in that game, so maybe he did. But again, he very famously hit, 5 or 6 at least guys in a row to start a game against the Reds one year, too, and got ran. So, yeah, that's a good name from a little bit even more, well, it's not quite contemporary, but Glaber gave a banger. Kiki left. Or Nestor gave a banger to Kiki. Who cares? You're so wrong about this situation, Carlos. He has shown he can pitch in a starting rotation. If they had a need in the rotation in the bullpen, and we had a guy to step in for Nestor, then I'd be all in favor of him going to pitch in a bullpen where he can do more good. I don't see that as the case. I don't see starting as being debilitating to his health. Last year, I know you'll want to put it on the innings that he pitched the last 2 years, whatever. Nobody pitches a lot of innings, and it's a bigger issue than just with Nestor. And Kiki Hernandez isn't like he's a terrible ball player. So you're going to pick out one game and tell me Nestor doesn't belong in a rotation when he's got 10 other starts this year that say otherwise. It's not just that Glaber's lazy. Glaber's stupid. I'm sorry. He's baseball stupid. I don't want to say again. He doesn't have a baseball acumen. He doesn't have a feel for the game. You see it on defense. You see it in his base running, as I've said 100 times. And good morning, Neil Bush. I'm sorry I didn't say good morning to you. Good to have you with us. Yeah, his base running strategy is to run until you get tagged. He hits a pop-up however many games ago and stands at home plate and watches it fall fair. He didn't know where it was. Then run. And he just can't. I mean, he's hitting 220. Forget about lazy, which I don't want to forget about. You're not wrong. I don't. Again, you label a player lazy, and it's kind of harsh. I'm not saying you're wrong, Neil. Some really good players have gotten labeled that, and they just make the game look easy, and they look lazy. Glaber doesn't make the game look easy, that's for sure. He's hitting 220, and his on-base percentage is 300. It's awful. Awful, 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 and he does need to go. And the problem is they didn't trade him when his value was at least rebounded a bit. He didn't have a horrible year last year. They could have traded him and got a lot more for him. Now, what are you going to get for Glaber now? And it's a shame because he had a ton of potential. He had a couple of really good years early on. And I really think the Yankees messed him up when they moved him to shortstop for that year. And he's never recovered. And I said forever, the Yankees, here's the thing what's going to happen with the Yankees. I guarantee you. Not guarantee you. Here's what I'm afraid of. We're going to run into the same situation we ran into with Gary Sanchez, that they were afraid to trade him because they're afraid what he's going to do somewhere else. Well, you found out Gary Sanchez could do somewhere else. Same exact thing he did here. And to be honest with you, I don't care what somebody does when I trade him. They could trade Glaber and he'd go hit 40 home runs for the Rangers. Well, he won't play for the Rangers. The Angels, whoever. If you're not doing it here, I don't care what you do somewhere else. What's it matter? What does it matter? And I said at the time when he lost his confidence, when he moved to shortstop, it affected his hitting and his fielding was not good, that coming back in New York was going to be difficult for him, and they may have to trade him for the good of the team and for Glaber's own good. But the guy is not. He doesn't have good baseball smarts. He just doesn't. Watch him run the bases. Oh my God. And Aaron Boone continuing to back these guys pisses me off. Anthony says the Mad New Yorker must have been talking about the NFL game in Brazil is bad. They can't wear green because of gang colors. And who's playing there? I don't even know who's playing there. It is this year, right? I kind of alluded to it, but I couldn't remember if that was something that was happening this year. Then why are we going there to play? I mean, if you can't wear your team colors because of gang colors in Brazil, why are we going there to play? And I'm assuming, is it a team that wears green? Well, I guess Green Bay, but they can wear white. But they're playing the Eagles. They both wear green. Or kind of a shades of green. Oh, by the way, since you said that, Anthony, that comment or that they can't wear green because of gang colors. This was brought up by the NFL's denying. This is Josh Jacobs from the Packers who said that green isn't allowed in Brazil, the Brazil game due to potential violence. It's a curious rumor spread Thursday. And Anthony, quite frankly, you have been right more than wrong when you break these stories. So you're right in the sense that it was said, but it was claimed by a player and not the league. Two-time Pro Bowler claimed he even told that people would not be allowed to wear green, and you got two teams. I guess the Packers could certainly get away with very little green. I don't know how the Eagles are going to do it. He'd been told by people that he would not be allowed to wear green and that the area was dangerous enough that players would potentially have to stay off the streets unless they were in armored vehicles. Why are they going then? If that's true, first of all, it's a player saying it, not the NFL. Then why are they going? So given the Eagles and Packers are 2 to 3 NFL teams that use green as primary color, scheduling them in a place where they can't safely wear green would be quite odd. The basis of Jacobs' claim boils to soccer rivalries as Arena Corinthians, that's where the game will be held, is home to Corinthians, a red-wearing club whose mortal enemies, the Palmeiras, wear green. This doesn't talking about gangs. It's two teams that hate each other. But the NFL saying this is not accurate. So I don't know what's right or wrong here. You're right, it came up. And again, if that's accurate, why would the NFL, why would they schedule these teams? Now, he makes two different comments here. It makes, to me, the one that's even more dangerous or more curious is if you can't travel around the city in Brazil that you're going to play games in without being in an armored vehicle, why are we going there? THC never hurts your golf game. Doesn't help mine. It doesn't seem to help mine, I'll tell you that. And again, to clarify, not that I have any problem with anybody who partakes. I don't, as Kenny knows. My issues are all secondhand. Tiger Woods' life is under a microscope. A golfer gets drunk on a Saturday night, and the world is right there with a sack of doorknobs to take him down. You said it. Build people up just to knock him down. Agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I said this about Tiger forever. Long before Tiger ever, had his wife chase him around with a golf club and backed his car into whatever he backed it into on Thanksgiving night or Eve, whatever it was. We'd already started to hate Tiger. And again, people like to make it a racial thing, and I don't think it is. And if somebody wants to comment that it is, they're entitled to that. But, I mean, I don't think it's that, because I've seen, people not of color get built up in this country, and then we can't wait to tear them down. That's what we do, right? We love to, and he was never an underdog, so don't get me wrong here. We like good stories until they just stay the story, and then we hate them. And again, Tiger didn't do himself any favors in that area. Randy spoke of the offers of greenies in the game. They were offered freely in the 70s at many levels. In the 60s as well, by the way. If you read Ball 4, which, by the way, one of the critics, as I mentioned, and Randy verified, one of the critics, when the reviews of the book were coming out, said it was the best baseball book since Ball 4, which if you haven't read Ball 4, read it. As a tell-all, it seems kind of, tame today. But Jim Bouton was talking about, players like Mickey and other guys. He was a Yankee for a long time, using greenies. And that was back in the 60s. And they also talked about all their carousing and everything else. So it was a big tell-all book. But it was certainly, and I did take your comment down, sorry. And it wasn't just offers with Randy. Randy pitched one game to start his Major League Baseball career in the Astrodome, and gave up gave up a bunch of home runs and runs. It didn't go well because he was nervous and he wasn't able to have his best stuff. The next time somebody's told him about the offer for greenies, his first Major League Baseball game was the last time he pitched a Major League Baseball game not under the influence, which tells you a lot about the times. Again, we're talking about the mid 70s with Randy Lurch. Came up in 75 or 76 for the final time until he was trying to hang on when he went back to the minors. And think about the times we were into. Cocaine was becoming big in the clubhouses. We had the cocaine trials in Pittsburgh that I talked about, where I think were 1979. A lot of big names got caught up in that. The two guys who are associated with the most are Parker and Hernandez, but there's a lot of guys, all the way down to guys like Dale Barra, that got caught up in that. Neil says Clark's on a bad team that still needs another scorer. Aaliyah Boston is playing a different style offense and not scoring either. Again, Clayton Clark's going to be fine, I think. Regardless of what you think of her game, she is drawing attention to the WNBA, which is good for the WNBA, which is a league that has struggled financially since its inception. They traveled commercial until this year. There will be more money as arenas fill up. And somebody else has got to come along besides Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese might be that person. Other people might be that person. If you're going to play in front of half full arenas every game, other than what Caitlin Clark participates in, then you're not going to go anywhere. And if these players are targeting her out of jealousy, then they're making a mistake. The ones that are doing it because, they feel rookies need to be initiated the same way Jordan was, the same way Bird was, the same way Magic was, and tons of other players in the NBA, then that's fine. But there's a little bit of both things going on. But very good point, Neil. I said a couple times she's playing on a bad team. Maybe the fact she can't get 2-pointers in is because, as I've watched, as soon as she tries to penetrate, everybody comes off their man. She's got like 3 people on her all the time when she tries to penetrate. Because they don't need to guard these other people. If you've seen her pass the ball, it's amazing she has as many assists as she has. Because I've seen her pass the ball off to people who look like they can barely dribble it. They look like me on a Saturday morning, Rick. Matt Barnes very publicly spoke up, backing up Caitlin Clark and their teammates. Actually, Matt Barnes' criticism was, and I don't remember Nancy Lieberman. I know she spoke up, but I don't remember what her comments were. And so did Gino Auriemma, by the way. He said there's a combination. There is a rookie. The rookie thing is part of this, but she's also being targeted at the same time. Matt Barnes specifically called out her teammates. That's my biggest problem in this thing. Players are going to be stupid. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, even if it's hurting their own pocketbook. Again, if Caitlin Clark is raising awareness in a WNBA, that's good for everybody. I'll say again, cliche, sorry. Rising tides raise all boats. If they don't realize that her success and the attention put on her will earn them more money in the long run, then they don't have any sense at all. Right? That's the opposing players. What her teammates are thinking about, and that's what Matt Barnes called her out for with some pretty strong language, by the way. Never a big Matt Barnes fan, but he made it clear that was one of his jobs on the team, is to back up his players. If this happened in the NBA, you wouldn't see it happening. Bill Maher, who I talk about a little bit, is somebody that, again, I haven't always had the same political views as Bill Maher. And he's moderated his own a little bit. Maybe I've moderated mine a little bit. I don't know. But he talked about this in much harsher terms on his show last week than I will. I will get myself in trouble again with the women if I talk about what he talked about. He said this doesn't happen in men's leagues for different reasons than I'm saying. Just looking at some of some of the viewers are, we're really got a very good distribution of where everybody's watching from today. I love that. Welcome wherever you're watching us from today. We appreciate the attention, and we appreciate all your guys' participation. I do want to try to get this under 2 hours today, so I'm going to try to wrap up at 10:30 if we can get through. I don't like leaving your guys' comments, but I do want to get to it. And if we don't, we don't. But again, you're right. People are speaking out, and, what are you going to do? It is what it is. Dave Guyette in Amsterdam, New York. Hello, Dave. Drew says Clark's teammates don't come to her defense for the same reason she's being targeted by other teams' players. Resentment. Again, and how short-sighted is that, Drew? That's even more foolish than the players on the other teams. She is your... Oh, God. I just don't, She's your ticket. And her teammates aren't good enough to resent her, by the way. None of them, from what I can see. Again, I have not sat and watched an entire Fever game. I've seen enough pieces of games to say, my God, anytime she gives up the ball, the person looks like they're... I'm sorry. I'm going to say something I shouldn't. To resent a player like Caitlin Clark, who brings attention to a league that you've been in for however many years you've been in it, whether it's 1 or 15, is ridiculous and short-sighted. She's already got you flying charter. She's going to bring more. Just her will bring more money into the leagues because she is filling arenas when she goes there. Angel Reese isn't filling arenas. Chandra Kennedy, whatever the heck her name is, isn't filling arenas. When the TV contract comes up again and they're getting a bigger one, which, by the way, means more money for the players. But again, she's not going to be able to do this on her own. Because she can't leave. She can't come into a city and then the next night, they fill the place at the rafters, and the next night they're at 25% capacity. That's not going to work either. She had 7 threes and 1 2-pointer. Again, Anthony, my point though, and I think it has some merit with the bad players she's playing around. If you've watched anytime I've seen any video of her trying to take the ball to the basket, there's 3 people collapsing on her and hacking at her pretty bad, which, by the way, and I'm really not trying to defend her. I'm just trying to make a point that these other players are very short-sighted. And again, I think part of her 2-point shooting is the fact that she can't, unless she's shooting from, and if you notice, a lot of her 3-point shots are 5 or 6 feet beyond the arc. If she tries to get any closer, she's getting hammered. I mean, how many of those 2-point shots are fouls? They still count as shots. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't count as shots. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But you're not wrong. If we look just at with blinders, Anthony, you're absolutely right. She scored 7 3-pointers and 1 2-pointer in that game. Robert Knight mentioned that the referees should do better. Maybe. I think the coaches, listen, there's enough blame to go around here. Coaches could do more. Referees could do more. Referees can only do so much. Players are still going to follow her. Coaches need to step up, I think, is maybe the only place this ends. Or these players realize this is pretty stupid. And I hope next year there's less of this. This is probably going to continue throughout this year. And I would hope in year 2 it's less, because now she's earned her stripes. She showed, and again, just like Michael Jordan and just like Bird and just like Johnson, they're going to make you earn your stripes and show that you can take this. And she's doing pretty well in that regard. So hopefully this goes away. Clark says Sis should be hot. Oh, they can't hit a jumper. They can't even dribble the ball, from what I can see, Neil. I see a guy get a ball, and it looks like I'm going to say something really wrong if I keep talking about that. Drew really enjoyed watching Brewers lead the NL Central while the Cubs continue to slide. Free agent managers, no different than free agent players, have to win to make it worth it. Totally disagree. I totally agree. Sorry. Craig Counsell took a calculated risk. He wanted to be the highest paid manager in baseball. And listen, I always liked Craig Counsell, and this whole thing has kind of soured me on him a bit. I mean, he made it clear that he did this, he made a big deal about doing this for other managers to raise the bar for manager salaries and whatnot. And he'd be, he would have been, neglectful if he hadn't jumped ship for more money. That's disingenuous. I'm sorry. But I certainly agree with you here that, he's getting his comeuppance right now. Okay, have a great one. Smoke him if you got him. Caddy, have a great Sunday. Oh, God. We will be here next Sunday of Father's Day, by the way, guys. Don't forget your dads. You should remember them every day. Don't forget your dads on this day. Chris would say he'd be remiss not to bring this up. In 1989, the Labatt owned Blue Jays held an in-game raffle. Guess the play. Chris sent me this the other day. I thought it was too funny. He mentioned it was very Canadian. Guess the player of the game. If you win the contest sponsored by Poulan Chainsaws, you get a T-shirt. You didn't get a shirt. You didn't get a hat. You got a chainsaw. I hope full of gas and ready to go so they could use it. Danny Fuller talked about Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was definitely a stud. Listen, get off Horace. Horace Clarke, by the way, was not Joe Morgan. I understand that. But back in the day, when he was playing, second basemen weren't all Joe Morgan, by the way. He was way above the norm. And Horace Clarke gets a bad rap. I mean, he led the league in chances a bunch of years. He batted leadoff. We call it the Horace Clarke era, which is a bit unfair to him. I mean, he was a starting second baseman there for 10 years. You don't do that by accident. Was he a great player? No, he'd hit 250, 240, 250, a couple home runs. He'd steal some bases. Wasn't great turning double plays, but Horace Clarke, to me, gets a really bad rap. Being the face of, the Yankees' struggles from 64 to 76. Now, yes, the Yankees started to win as soon as they got rid of him in 74, actually, even. Sandy Alomar was a second baseman that year, and they traded Haas to San Diego, where he quickly flamed out. Reds finally circling the wagon 7 in a row. We talked about them Friday. They won a couple more in a row and, making a little bit of a run in the Central and playing well. It's funny. I should ask theoretical questions about managers getting fired every week, and maybe the teams will do better. Dave Schultz. I wondered if Chris didn't have some minor league stats for the player he mentioned as far as total penalty, most penalty minutes in a season. Don Drysdale, I believe you hit one of his players. He hit 2 of yours. And that's the way the game was played. And some people today will probably think it's barbaric, right? But players police the game themselves. We don't do that today because guys don't want to throw inside, or guys don't expect to get hit because guys are afraid to throw inside. Then when they get hit, they take offense to it. Play the game the right way. You won't get hit. I mean, I don't believe in just hitting a guy because a guy hits a home run off you. But if a guy shows you up, then you know what? I'm going to hit the guy behind you. Then I'm going to hit you when you come up. Orioles lead MLB with homers. Padres batting average. Dodgers on base percentage. That feels kind of low, doesn't it? Reds right behind with 96 stolen bases. Stolen base. You know what? It's great that stolen bases are up, but it's an artificial rise, right? The whole change of the rules, again, to help offenses and hurt pitchers. You can only throw over to first base twice. So you throw over once, you got a free pass, basically. The fact that the baselines are shorter, and don't tell me it doesn't matter. It's a game of inches. We see it all the time. So if first base is an inch bigger, second base is an inch bigger, it's no longer 90 feet between the bases. It matters. I am amazingly hard on the Yankees. And again, they're playing good baseball. I'm not trying to say they're not. And I'm sticking up for their starting rotation. I'm sticking up for Nestor. It's just a bad day. But there's guys I am not going to stick up for because they are not carrying their weight. Stan's not carrying his weight. Glaber's not carrying his weight. Rizzo's not carrying his weight. Love Anthony Rizzo. Very important to that defense. But I got to have more than 224 and a 275 on base percentage out of my first baseman. I just do. And Stan, I'm tired of people every time he hits a couple home runs and they average 115 miles an hour, which means nothing. He's back. Yeah. Yankees lead in the ERA. Yankee pitching staff's been great. Carlos, are you watching? The White Sox. By the way, the White Sox won 2 in a row since they set a record of 14 straight losses. club record, 14 straight losses since we talked on Friday. Teams leading in complete games include the Braves, Astros, and Jays with a mammoth total of 2. That's amazing. That's amazing. Hurts. Bottom line, Boone stinks. I'm not a fan of Aaron Boone, so I don't disagree. Good morning, Billy Pulver. I know Billy was at the Belmont yesterday. Again, won by a horse owned by Jason Worth, former MLB standout. I still haven't found it. Anyway, he was 17-1. Great job. 50,000 in attendance yesterday. I think the weather held out okay, Billy. I'm not sure, but I think the weather held out okay. There's our boy in Detroit, Jeremy. The kneecap biting with the Motor City Lions. That report is false. It's because of home. That's what I said, right? That's what I was reading. So it isn't a gang problem, but again, whatever. This players talk about whatever they talk about. Anthony's been right with these things when I dispute him more than he's been wrong. Actually, I think this is the first time I've ever said, Anthony, that may be wrong, he was actually wrong. Danny Fuller loves your emoji, Washington Redskins fan club. By the way, there's a decent movement, at the risk of extending our show again, there's a decent movement to restore the Redskins nickname to the team formerly known as the Redskins in Washington. 4 teams wear green. Packers, is that even green? I don't even wonder if the Eagles and Seahawks colors are green. And the Jets do wear green. I think they said they were 2 of the 3, didn't they, in that article I was reading? Maybe they're not counting that whatever those colors are that Seahawks count as green. I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was there. Should have been there. I go back up. It shows you can support. It does show the star button, Danny. And if it doesn't, don't get too excited. Don't worry. I appreciate the effort. It should be there. I do appreciate that, by the way. Lurch was on the Phillies and traded to the Brewers. Yes, we talked. Watch the interview, Neil, if you haven't. It's very insightful. Read the book. Get the book. Go to Amazon and get the book. It's a great read. Easy read. I read it in 2 days, and I used to read a lot, but for me to read a book in 2 days now is a lot. It's a good read, and there's and Hal Lurch, the author, interjects a few things here and there, and it's really an interesting read and a fun read. And again, he's very open. He was very open Friday about his, how his high prospects to be a really good MLB player kind of went up in flames because of his drug and alcohol use, quite frankly. And we talked in detail about all of that, plus a lot of good baseball talk. We talked about his time with the Phillies, and we talked about how he won the first playoff game in Brewers history in Yankee Stadium after they were down 2-0 in 1981. Cocaine does not discriminate. Nothing discriminates when it comes to drugs. London Game 2 just started now. Are they on Roku today, Danny, or what are they on? If they got that early window, I thought Roku had a exclusive Sunday deal now. Mets need to win this game today. Mets are done. You're going to see guys get traded. Alonso's going to be traded. If they don't trade Alonso, they don't know what they're doing over there, because as I've said before, I said this to Alan a couple of years ago before the Rangers took off last year when it came to Martin Perez, and maybe there was another guy. If you know a guy's going to free agency, and Alonso's going to free agency, Scott Boras is his agent. He's going to free agency, which means he's going to take offers from other teams. And if that's going to be the case, you can negotiate with him just like other teams, the same way if he's traded as if you keep him. So if they don't trade him to a contender and get something for him, then they're making a huge mistake. Everyone lost in the NL East yesterday. That's not even possible because two of the teams were playing each other, by the way. The Phillies and the Mets played each other, so the Phillies had to win. It's jealousy with Clark. Again, jealousy, resentment, right? Jeremy, whatever we want to call it. It's very short-sighted is what it is. Again, they're not thinking about the big picture. Rising tides. Carlos, as long as the Brewers keep winning, the Cubs fail to last. I don't know. Did Carlos say something about I don't know what Carlos said about the Brewers. I didn't see that. So that might be for Drew. I'm not sure. The Yankees-Dodgers series this weekend could be two teams playing in the World Series. Both teams playing good baseball. Agreed, Dave, but again, I know you weren't here earlier. And again, I know I hate to be so negative about my own team, especially when I got the second best winning percentage in baseball. But these two games are a microcosm of what's been wrong with this team for half a decade or more. You can't score runs against elite pitching. 20 men left on base the last 2 days. I'll keep saying it. 1 for 21, Rizzo, Glaber, and Stanton. Only 5 strikeouts. I guess I should look at something good there, right? Garrett Cole with a second rehab start today. Probably another one to come. Hopefully he'll be back. That's not going to help this. And does this mean, I guess we're over, so I'm not using this game as a repeat tonight. That's fine. Does this mean we got to sign Soto? I mean, the way they played these last 3 games, whatever, without Soto. I don't know. You could very well see these teams in the World Series. I'm not saying you won't. I want my team to be there. I want to be wrong about the way they don't play the game the right way sometimes. Hello from California, Matt. Good to have you with us. I believe a first-time commenter anyway, so we're glad to have you with us. We're about 3 minutes over. Maybe I'll go to quarter to the hour. I got to get done here at some point. I don't know. Scott Cote. And there's Scott. Scott Kobe's in for he waited till after I should be done this time to come in. But good morning, Matt. It's great to have you with us. Danny Fuller's out there too. Matt, are your allegiances to the LA teams? Dodgers, Rams, Lakers, etc. Just curious, since you're new, and we do invite you to come back every week and participate. We may not be on too much longer this morning because 10:30 is usually our end time, but Scott has made sure that doesn't happen. Football season comes, I gotta get done at 10:30. I watched a few minutes after. Rick did watch the Fever last night. Let's be honest, how many of us have watched the game and not ESPN clips? I'm very honest. I haven't watched anything except, well, again, I shouldn't say just ESPN clips. I've watched some pieces of some games on YouTube, enough to know the team she plays for stinks. And maybe they're getting better, Rick. I don't know. Quite honestly, I preferred to go see Back to the Future, the musical last night, rather than watch the Fever game. So there you have it. I'm probably not going to watch a lot of those games. Quite frankly, again, getting back to the problem I caused myself a few months ago. But again, thinking about the sport wants to survive. These players need to understand who's buttering the bread. College World Series has turned out to be good. Scott, good morning, by the way. Only kidding you about any of the other stuff. We're going to look at this more in detail. We'll look at the regionals real quick, just to give you where we are. The Knoxville Super Regional, Evansville and Tennessee's tied at 1. So they got a deciding game. Florida State is advanced. I was rooting for UConn, but they got hammered. I mean, absolutely hammered. 24-4 in the first game. Then they lost the second game in extra innings. Virginia has finished up their series against Kansas State, in 2 straight. Carolina 1-2 straight. Kentucky 1-2. I'm sorry, Kentucky's playing today. They have a 1-game lead. Georgia and NC State are playing today. NC State with a 1-game lead just destroyed number 1 Georgia 18-1 in the first game. Florida and Clemson also 1-0. They play today. It's Florida leading 1-0. Texas A&M 10-6 winners, and they'll play today as well against Oregon. So there's your College World Series update. What do I get Bodkins, my dad, for Father's Day? I'm stuck. Should it be the other way around, Scott? I think you're more likely to be Bodkins' dad. I would get him a hot water heater. I mean, these cold water baths he's taking are just taking a toll, I think, on Scott. So maybe a new hot water heater. Jeremy says, I miss baseball the way it was played in the 1990s. Until the 1990s, sorry. So do I, 100%. I talk about it incessantly. I know. I probably drive people crazy. Probably people, Jeremy, I'm looking at your picture, and I'm going to say you're younger than me, but maybe not. I don't think you're in your 30s. So kids in their 30s don't understand why I feel the way I feel, why I'm an old guy yelling for them to get off my lawn. But they don't know how the game was played. They don't understand how baseball was always played. And what I'm watching isn't baseball anymore. It's not. Dave Guyette, the Dodgers won't get to the World Series. This is Scott again. They're not a very good baseball team. Keep in mind that I said the team after the first 4 or 5 hitters, and that lineup is dreadful. At the bottom, I will give you the bottom of the lineup is not great, but Scott, they keep coming up with pitchers. I don't know where they come from. I asked Danny Fuller, our number 1 Dodger fan, Gavin Stone, where'd this guy come from? He's having a great year. Not quite as good as Luis Heel, but close. And the Dodgers pit their pot. Oh, come on. That's not fair. Scott, that's not fair. The pitching staff is really good. Plus, Buehler's still working himself into place. Kershaw hasn't pitched yet. Their bullpen, might give you that. Their starting rotation has been really good. 4 for his last 38, Rizzo's. I like Rizzo, but I can't continue to throw that out there game after game. Last year, we went into this type of slump. We blamed it on the post-concussion stuff. You didn't have that excuse this year. Can't keep coming up there with men out in scoring position and just fail time after time after time. And that's what Stanton does. That's what Glaber does. That's what Rizzo does. Verdugo to a little lesser extent. Still need some upgrades on this team. Now, there's some coming. Dominguez is progressing well. If he comes up and he can, if they say they think he can play every day and contribute, he can play center field and get Judge out of center field and move Soto to left, or move him to DH and put Stanton on the freaking bench. I don't care about how much he's making. I could care less. It's the Yankees. This is not the Kansas City Royals. By the way, I cashed on a trifecta and also win place show. Oh, nice day for you yesterday on the Belmont, eh? If you bet the winner, he paid $36, I'm guessing, right? I didn't see the payout, but I know he's 17-1. He had to pay $36. Seahawks have 3 green jerseys. I guess, here's the thing, Jeremy. I wasn't really disputing you anyway, but I don't distinguish colors well, right? I can tell, like, this shirt often looks very red to me. It looks red to me now. I look at it on the screen, I think it's orange, but I can't tell between oranges and reds, different shades of blue, different shades of green. I really can't distinguish those colors. So just a little bit about me. You people get up this early for Keith. Mostly kidding. My arch nemesis on the college football huddle, John DeLon. John, I hope you caught the interview with your boy, Harvey Williams. I know he is one of your favorites. We had a great conversation 2 weeks ago. I hope you caught it, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for me. Mets are on ESPN. What happened to Roku and having the early window on Sunday mornings exclusively? So these contracts they sign with these TV networks seem to mean nothing. We still got a lot of comments. I'm trying to get out of here, but we're going to keep going until I don't have any. Dodgers, why not? Go Dodgers. Sorry. Oh, I missed one here. John DeLon, the Clark hate is because she's straight, white, Catholic, and not woke. Well, I do think the racial part of it might be lesser than we think, but I do think there's something to all of those. Again, I mentioned this earlier that there's been conversation that the league being heavily lesbian, which I have no personal problem with. I don't. I know John's going to say that makes me a rhino probably because I can't have any kind of thoughts that don't match up with the conservative right I pretend to belong to. But I guarantee you, outside of gay marriage and such, my views are very conservative and remain so. I don't have a problem with same-sex couples and such. I don't care about that, but it shouldn't come into play here because she's straight. They're going to take, again, it's short-sighted. Whether it's because of her orientation or because of her ethnicity, because of her religion, or because of her views, they're still being short-sighted because they're going to take money out of their own pockets. If that's what you want your career to be this, and you want this league to stick around, you should root for Caitlin Clark's and 10 more of her to come along. And I don't care what color they are. I don't care what their orientation is. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care what their politics are. You should root for 10 more Caitlin Clark's to come along to boost this league so you can make some real money. Again, go Dodgers. Herm Whittingham was a first-round pick 4 years in a row. So he was a bust 4 times. Well, he only came into the league once, but let's let Keith go. Have a great weekend. Drew, you have a great Sunday as well. I'm thinking the sun is starting to come out or brightened up at least, because I'm starting to see, I didn't close the curtains behind me, and I started to see that little distortion there. Don't get mad at people in California. Told you we should have built a wall on the west side of this show. He's mostly kidding. Don't take John too seriously. He's a SEC elitist from Louisiana who thinks anything west of the Mississippi should be walled off. Well, west of Texas, I guess. maybe come down the Mississippi and up and around Texas is what you want to do. I don't know. I don't say that. I have friends in California, and I can tell you right now that Danny Fuller, for sure, would certainly fit in your demographic, John. I've told you before, you can't judge people who live in liberal states that, our views align with the people that run our states. Rick Sherlock, I've taken my daughter and granddaughter to WNBA games, and they have no interest to go again. Well, there you go. There's only so many missed fast break layups you can watch before you start getting bored. Agreed. Oh, thank you, Matt. Hold on one second. What is that? Go Oregon. Okay. Danny's making me work here. It's like a word search. Matt, you've already earned your stripes on this show by running down the Ghost Runner. A real dumb idea. Stupid idea. A great game Friday night. A great game Friday night in my mind between the Yankees and the Dodgers going to extra innings with no score. Now, Dodgers may very well. I'm not saying it cost the Yankees a game. But for that game to a great game to now not look like baseball at all in the 10th inning is ridiculous. Great, well-pitched game, good defense, mostly on both sides. Now we got to start with a runner on second base. And it's just BS, Matt. Please join us again next Sunday, Matt, or for any of my shows. Scott, just a hater, must be an Angelette or Padres fan. He's a Red Sox fan. Might make it worse for you. Yes, it was. And went 6 for 6 on college baseball games. Scott, I hope you're making this your full-time job these days because you're doing well. When are you going to have the retirement home on one-on-one with Keith Engle? Well, the problem is usually those applesauce fights are happening about the time we do the show, and it's very, very disturbing. Steve, you have a great day as well. John, I did see the interview with Harvey. It was just, I want to say a month ago or so. Daryl passed away. Good athlete in his own right, and Harvey paid nice tribute to his brother as well. So that was a fun interview. They're all fun for me. I don't have a problem with lesbian youth, but a lot of them have a problem with non-woke people. I don't disagree with that. I can't speak for what other people do, right? I don't care necessarily how people view me. It's just, everybody. Here's the problem. As I said at the top, and I've said many times, we disagree on lots of things on this show. But John and I disagree on lots of things. Drew and I disagree on different things. I disagree with Chris. I disagree with Danny. We all part friends. Too often, if you don't believe exactly what I believe, well, I can't associate with you. That's not me. I have lots of friends who don't believe exactly what I believe. My bet today is Luka under 8.5 assists. There you go. There's your bet, guys. Put your 401k money on that. Scott is red hot. Still looking for that jerk who broke my car window and left with WNBA tickets. That's an old joke, by the way. It's a great one, though, John. I actually told the same joke about the Mets and no. I think it was a Red Sox series this weekend. Sorry, Scott. Somebody broke my windshield. I had 2 tickets in the game. Somebody broke my windshield and left 2 more. Pete Exum's the first guy I ever heard tell that story. Oh, thank you, Danny. You guys make this easy. I have a blast doing this show, and we're gonna sign off. If there's a quick comment that comes up, I'll get it up. But I appreciate you guys, all of you. Matt, our new viewer, I hope you'll be back. Jeremy, who haven't seen you in a bit, good to see you. Danny, Chris, Drew, Rick, Anthony. Who am I forgetting? John, Scott. Whoever, if I forgot somebody, I apologize. You're all JB. You guys are all welcome every Sunday. You're welcome to the College Football Huddle on Wednesdays, 7 Eastern Time. One-on-one with Keith Engle, 9 a.m. Fridays. We'll have Paul Rosen, para athlete, won a gold medal in hockey in the Paralympics a few years back. Hope you'll be back. Good to see you. It's Matt. Thanks for watching. Glad you had fun. We'll be back next Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness and with all those shows I mentioned in between. I missed the MLB update on Fridays at 3. So, guys, have a great Sunday. See you next week when it's Father's Day. Don't forget your dad.